going on, guys? Thanks for hopping on. I know it's been a crazy couple hours for people that were coming to tune into the sheep wool video, but unfortunately, some stuff came up and we had to reschedule. Fortunately, I started thinking about it and it became really obvious that I hadn't done a Q&A in a while. So I thought this would be a really cool opportunity to do that. CJ, how are you seeing this? I'm blaming Elliot. Uh, so we've got a few folks on, not too many. But I want to introduce actually, sorry, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. Our video guy, he does a lot of stuff to help us out and to make some cool stuff for us. So, Matt, say hi.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt. I've been working with Andy and Elliot for since last January.
Yeah, just about a year now.
Yeah,
So yeah, he's the guy that tells me when I have bad ideas mostly. That's what he's here for.
yeah, shoot that down.
Yeah, so usually it's like, hey, we should do this, and he's like, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. So yeah, I posted up on Instagram if people had some questions about farm stuff or whatever. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to answer those in a different format than Instagram, which is whatever. So yeah, let's see what we've got. Hold on one second. I'm just trying to figure out where we're streaming right now. So hopefully you guys actually enjoyed the episode we just recently dropped with Peter Michael Bauer. Super cool guy. If you're into rewilding, 100% go check his work out with Rewild Portland. I'll be speaking at the Rewilding Conference with him, the North American Rewilding Conference, January 20 next weekend, that one, 29th. So that'll be really cool. It's an opportunity. It should be up on Zoom. I don't think there's any money associated with signing up for it. So that's cool. Yeah, Urban Scout as well. That's one of his pseudonyms that he's known for. So if you're familiar with that, go check it out. Cool. Just wanted to make sure this wasn't streaming to my personal Facebook. So that's always important. Something about security. I don't know. So, yeah, I wanted to answer some questions that people had. Let's see what we got on Instagram. We'll start there and work our way over, unless people want to just post questions that they have about prole content or any of that good stuff. Hold on one second. I should never been allowed in charge of tech stuff. All right, so the first question we got is around Jadam. So if you guys listen to the Jadam episode, we talked about what materials to use, specifically around plants. The song comes from the handles Mandy Moorhall Makes Music, I think. He is a listener of the podcast, and I was talking to him about the fact we had to get rid of the old music. And he was like, "Oh, I'll make you something," and I was like, "This is kind of what I want." And he came up with it, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. You cannot buy the song, but I think he is eventually going to do something else with it as well. So keep an eye out for that. Let me see if I can spell it out for you. Give me one second.
That
Yeah,
chicken coop type beat.
what's that? Yeah,
The
it's
chicken
pretty
coop
dope.
type beat.
As much as I miss Toad in the intro, this is a pretty good one. Yeah, it's Mandy Moorhall, as in Mandy Moore Moorehol makes music. So he's the guy. He's gonna be releasing it at some point. Glad it's getting you amped. So Cattail Gang is here. That's always good. So, but to get back to the Jadam thing, so somebody was asking, I'd mentioned like there's this wetting agent that is super important to be able to like utilize natural insecticides and things like that. And the question was basically, this seems like it's, I'll read it specifically. Um, because it was worded in a very specific way. I'm terrible with Instagram. It really is amazing. I can accomplish anything on the internet. Um, so the question is, could you use dish soap in place of JWA? It looks like it's just basically homemade canola soap. So you probably could, except for the fact that there's the antibacterial component, which is obviously going to be a problem if you're not trying to kill off any bacteria. The soapiness part of it, the canola component of it is the key piece of it. I would imagine that there's probably a way to do it. You probably won't get as effective, but there's probably a way to do it utilizing something else. I'm not a chemist. I'm not into that stuff, so I couldn't really speak to that part. But you could not use the dish soap specifically because of that antibacterial component. So that is that answer. Anyone else here have some questions? What about Matt? Matt, do you have questions for me? Not to put you on the spot.
Do I have questions for you? Yeah, how are the sheep doing?
The sheep are
Did
good.
you did you just also get a bunch of snow?
We did not. We got no snow. We got a little bit of rain. But the sheep are good. They're wet. They're mad about being wet. They're tired of hay. They're so tired of hay. They're like, just give me grass. I just want something green, please. Um, so the sheep are great. So we do have a bunch of stuff coming up. It's actually a really opportune time to do this as well for a couple of reasons. Not only because we haven't done a Q&A in a while, but also because of the fact that we are in the process of dropping season 2 of the Prole models. So if you guys can think way, way back to when we were talking about like Japan and Norway and all that stuff, we're gonna be doing that again, but with a different take on it a little bit in the sense that we're gonna do more integration with like interviews and things like that. So we're going to be going in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about Ireland, which is going to be pretty cool. Indigenous Ireland. All I'm going to tell you about it is bears. You're going to have to find out what that means in a couple weeks.
We're gonna have to
Uh,
bear with you.
you'll have to bear with us. Uh, so that'll be really exciting. We've got some really cool guests coming up. I'm really excited. I just had an interview 2 days ago, Matt, that I was like, I just had the coolest interview with some people doing some really cool stuff like in Central America.
Mhm.
So there's some really fun, exciting, interesting stuff that I think people will be super into. So, and in regards to Elliot's AK, he has not built it yet. Despite my nudgings, it has not been built. So I will remind him that he owes people a gun and a good explanation of how he built it, because that's what he's been talking about since we started this podcast. So let's see what we got. I just heard my phone go off, so that means that there's more questions for me. Let's see. All right. So, are you growing mushrooms yet? So, I did the toilet paper method to grow mushrooms like, I don't know, a year ago, 6 months ago. It was last summer. And it's basically you take a toilet paper roll, you stick it in hot water until it swells up to like yay big. And then in the middle, you put the spore. So I did that, and then you throw it in the fridge, you take it out and you wet it. And I did like 4 of them, and I got like some really nice blue oyster mushrooms. And I've got like I still have some spore or grain or whatever still in my fridge, but it was pretty cool. And like for the cost of like $30 for the spore and like I don't know, like how much does toilet paper cost, Matt? I don't know these kind of things.
Depends when.
That's true.
That's much.
Uh,
That's
I was pretty wasteful in the summer of 2021 to be using toilet paper to grow mushrooms. But yeah, like for like $40, you can grow a decent amount of mushrooms. So it's a cool experience. Yeah. So the logo was made on Fiverr, so you get what you pay for. I was trying to explain certain things about what we wanted to do with our logos, and sometimes that gets lost in translation. So it is what it is now. But we only actually have used that logo for the patch, and I don't know what else we'll end up using it for. But right now, that's been pretty much it. We've actually ordered some new ones because we sold out of the patches, and they've been on back order now for like couple months. So I was shocked that we actually got the Fire Beavers patches in because we ordered them at the same time. So I'm not sure why we got one and the other ones haven't moved. So I don't know if like with one order was literally the last thing made until they needed like new supplies. But yeah, go get yourself a Fire Beaver patch. We got a bunch of them. I know Matt's real excited about them.
Yeah, honestly, I really like them.
They are
Like the
pretty cool.
Union patch style.
Yeah. I was super like when I designed it and I sent it to them, I was like, what are the chances that this comes out the way I want it to look? And it actually came out pretty cool. So I could probably send you the file, but like I also don't know what that means, like the JPEG file, or is there like I think there's like a PSD or something like that. Um so yeah, I'm tech illiterate. We've been working on this website for months now, and it turns out, according to the person that's working with us right now, that I was using the wrong website the whole time. So,
Really?
don't let me near technology is really the lesson here. So, yeah, let's see what else we got for questions right now.
Did you put something on your story?
Yeah, so I'm literally live answering questions people ask me on the story, unless people have questions that are watching. But, like, with Instagram, you have to, like, always cycle through the story to get to the most recent post. So it's, like, super fun for me who's completely tech illiterate. What are you doing this time of year on the farm? Alright. So, this time of year is kinda interesting because I'll usually start splitting wood for the next winter, and I'm usually drinking because I'm pretty miserable because this is, like, the worst time of year for me. I don't like the cold. Um Seeds have been ordered by this point, and if you've I don't have a cold frame right now, but, if you do, now is probably, like, you're just hitting the end of the year if you can't use it. You're probably cleaning it out for the year because it's just getting just the coldest part of the winter. So you got, like, couple about a month right here till maple tapping season. So I'll be tapping some maple trees, usually the middle to late February, early March, depending on the weather. This year has been kind of weird. I know people in zone 6 and 5 have already started tapping some trees, which is crazy.
Right.
I've never heard of anyone tapping in January. Um, so that's weird and interesting and not a good sign of climate change to say the least. Um, Bright side, I'm looking forward to tapping maple trees soon.
You
So
know, you take the good with the bad.
yeah,
Now, world devastation, maple syrup a little bit earlier.
tomato, tomato, same thing. So yeah, Matt will be coming out. We're gonna do some footage of maple tapping, birch tapping. Maybe we'll do some. I know there's some black walnuts near us, so I was thinking about maybe doing some renegade black walnut tapping out in other lands. So that'd be pretty cool. So we'll see. What are some simple small things that make your work easier, more fun, that are maybe not worth a whole episode? Huh. Um, I feel like there's like a lot of little things like, and that's what I think some of the YouTube content will be really good is like I've been planning this idea for like a chicken tractor that's not like a chicken tractor. It's basically like two 2x4 little coops basically that are like tied together, and in the middle would be like a couple like 5-gallon buckets, one for like water, and the other one would be like for black soldier fly larvae, and you'd be able to rotate, like put them on big tires, like 14, 16-inch tires, so that it's like super easy to move, and you could rotate that as like a daily rotation with like a dozen chickens or ducks or whatever, and you've got everything right there. You got their feed, you've got their grazing because you're moving them every day, and then you've got the black soldier fly, which is giving them high protein. You've got water, like everything's right there. So additionally, what you could do is by having them separate on the other sides, you've got better weight distribution. And also you could like put some like chicken wire over the top, which gives them some protection if you're working through like a field that's pretty open. So that's something I think we're going to try to build next spring or this spring rather, or maybe summer. So like that's one of those things like I can talk about in like 5-10 minutes, but isn't really something you can make an episode about. Um, in terms of like content type stuff that I'm not sure I swing it into an episode. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things you pick up on, just like one of the things for me is like having when you're working with electric fence, having like multiple sets of stuff, so that way you're not like moving something, having to like corral the animals to the next spot. Just having enough fence posts so that you can leave like a lot of them in the ground, so you're not constantly drilling T posts into the ground. Just little things like that that can save your life a little, make it a little bit easier. Um, you said before when people ask you where's the best region to start on permaculture, that the best plan is to stick with the region you're familiar with. If you do want to plan to start farming in a different zone than you've grown up in, are there any specific areas to pay more attention to? Yeah. So I think paying attention to climate change is super important. Paying attention to places with good infrastructure is super important. Being aware of places that are going to be hotbeds in the future, not specifically in climate, but in terms of like geopolitics, is going to be super important. Um, so, like, I've said this a lot, and I'll probably continue to say it. If you're very concerned and you're not tied to a place, places like Michigan are great. Land is cheap. You're not really near any like borders. There's no major cities that people are going to be fighting over. Land is pretty good. You've got large access to fresh water. With climate change, it'll warm up a bit. I think there's been a lot of analysis that have suggested that parts of Michigan will be very similar to like northern Italy, like winemaking country, in the next like 40 or 50 years. So like could be worse. Like it really could.
If all
Uh,
else fails, we'll have Michigan wine.
if all else fails, we have Michigan. So that's the one I primarily would advocate for if you're like seriously tell me where to go. Um,
I mean, but
I
that's
like
a
it. Good.
so I was gonna say that this is a good application of, like, what we were talking about with, like, the brittleness
Yeah,
of an environment. You wanna move somewhere that, like, is not susceptible to that or, not brittle.
yeah. You definitely want to make sure wherever you go can like handle some change because there's gonna be change. Um, Obviously, wouldn't recommend California. Wouldn't recommend the Southeast. Appalachia's probably got some opportunities, which would be pretty cool. Um,
What do you think about the coast in the future?
I'm so torn about like where on the coast could be good and could be bad. Um, so like I'm thinking about like with climate change, obviously, like you're gonna have sea level rise, which is bad. Um, Conversely, you also have to deal with the fact that like we do consume a lot of food from the ocean. So like having that access is important. So how close can you get without like cutting it too close? And
Well,
also you have to deal with like the Gulf Stream.
yeah, and not just food, like in some of the videos,
Salt.
calcium and seaweed and salt
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and seaweed. Matt's probably tired of watching me work with seaweed. He's got a bunch of video content of me right now on his computer of me like playing with seaweed. So
a suspicious amount.
can't take me anywhere. Really can't. Um
I mean, like, salt is a really good example of, like, a really important product. Because if you have salt, then you can, like, long term preserve meat, whereas if you don't have access to it.
yeah, and I don't think people realize like how much salt goes into food preservation. So like one of the things I'd posted about I think today actually was the process of like dry aging meats and things like that, and like the process of making food better at storing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about like indefinite storage, but also the idea of like how do we just make it slightly better? Like what little things can we do that can make food go from like, you know, say 6 months in a freezer to a year in a freezer, or whatever that process is that you're storing that food. And there's a lot of little things that you can do. So that's something I would like to utilize like the Twitch live stream for in the future. Um, I know you asked after that. I guess by area, I meant like subject matters to pay special attention to. Water harvesting is going to be super important. Salt harvesting is going to be super important. Um,
Community building.
yeah, I mean, community building definitely. In terms of like, I think things people are not thinking about, salt is probably the biggest one. Like, I think people understand like water and food. Salt's a big one, and I think also like staple crops, and that's something that gets ignored. Like people are like, "Oh, look at my big half-acre garden." It's like, okay, where are your storable foods? Where are the storable calories?
True.
Grains, nuts, those types of things. Like the things that will get you through the winter are the important ones.
In the Earthbound Almanac, there was a great article on like saying basically that like it great you can like grow a garden like all these like delicious nutritious foods, but like having calories is also like super important if you can't get your calories.
Yeah, the a tomato has, I don't know, like 40 calories. So like if you grow like a bunch of tomatoes, like it's still not calorically dense. It's not protein dense. There's like a lot of great stuff in it. Like don't get me wrong, but you can't live on tomatoes. You can live on grains. You won't be super
Watch them.
happy about it, but you can do it. So like that's the important thing. I think we need to be we need to be aware of. And yes, there'll always be a steady supply of salts. Um, so Cole mentioned, I'm losing track of my comments.
Well,
He
only
talked about
one.
seed bombs, and seed bombs are a great thing to do in the winter if that's something you want to do. I never got into it. It's one of those things I keep meaning to try again. It's just never really been a thing for me, and that's not a criticism of pelletizing. It's just not something I ever really got into. Um,
Um, do what I did, just throw a pumpkin in neighbor's abandoned yard.
there
That's a
you go. That's an
it's
option.
a
It's kind of a seed
big
bomb if
seed
it's
bomb.
rotted enough.
Yeah, well, it did splat, so
There you go.
area of effect.
Yeah. As for an episode on making alcohol, that's definitely on the to-do list. There's a bunch of uses for alcohol. Um, it's something that's can preserve. It's something that we can use for like weapons. It's something that makes us feel better. It can sanitize. It's got a bunch of uses. The Revolutionary's Garden, which is a podcast of a friend of ours, recently did an episode on some alcohol related stuff. So I definitely recommend, if you can go check out their content. As for tool reviews, favorite tools, I actually really don't have a whole lot of favorite except for my steel chainsaw, which is great. It's a tank and it's very light, which is great because I spend a lot of my winter usually chopping down trees. I guess that is something I forgot to mention is I'm usually cutting down trees on top of splitting wood at this time of year. Uh, but
My
uh,
favorite tool, like a little Dutch hoe. It's
oh
great
yeah,
in the garden because, well, you can hoe with it, but then it's also got just like kind of like a sharp blade. You can just like chop stuff down, even if it's like pretty big.
yeah, Elliot made it, and he is not even on our side. What are you doing, buddy? I sent you the link. Um, so let's see what else we got here.
No, I'm pretty sure paper towels are important.
Let's see. 1 cup of hickory nuts has more than 100% of daily fat needs. Yes, hickory nuts in particular are really as close to like the perfect wild food as there is. um, as well as persimmons. Persimmons, I think, are the most calorically dense fruit, or calorically dense fruit on Earth, which is pretty cool. So if you don't know about persimmons, you should get to know about persimmons. Matt is leaving me, so bye, buddy. When he comes back, I'll let him tune back in. So leftovers again is Elliot, so y'all can say hi. Uh, yeah, so micromanaging paper towel usage isn't productive as an ecological strategy versus like degrowth or place-based sustainable foodways. Yeah, trying to get people to see that can be a difficult challenge to start getting them to think about this idea of like, okay, yeah, it's great that you're being more sustainable about things, but if we're consuming, but just slower, we're still consuming on a finite planet. And I get that's a really difficult challenge to kind of cross around this idea of like, yeah, if we don't do anything differently, we're all gonna die in a bad way. Um, and we're actually gonna have a guest on in about a month for the Twitch stream. You may know her as Woke Scientist, and we'll be chatting about just that. Um, let's see, playing catch up here. Yeah, so I would love to be able to write off a lot more stuff for business expenses. Unfortunately, I do have a tax license that I care about not losing. um, so we have a visitor here, a specific cat. I'm surprised mine is not in here. She usually bugs me when I'm in here.
That's Boots the cat.
Boots.
She's so small. She's like 7 pounds.
She is a tiny cat.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, where did we leave off? Yeah, so we'll do more gun content. Probably, I don't know, like the next year or so. We've pretty much got this spring figured out and the summer figured out, and the fall is kind of starting to come together because I'm a little bit OCD. So Matt can attest to like my spreadsheets that just go out of control. Um, but we'll be, like I said, we'll be doing the Pro Model series this spring. We're going to be jumping into a new series late this spring, which is going to be pretty cool. And not to put you on the spot again, Matt, but you'll actually be heading some of the episodes, which will be pretty cool. I'm
Yep.
looking forward to talking less and listening more.
Lazy bastard. You let me write all the other episodes.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I keep them around for. I'm like, hey, listen, I did the first content. Now, like, I'm gonna be a capitalist and just ride those 70 episodes into the sunlight in the distance. But
Or buying an island somewhere in the South Pacific to haul up.
me and Elon, it's gonna be great. We're gonna
Yeah.
shoot Teslas into the sky at night, like fireworks.
Oh god, that's fucking awful. Yeah, I'm excited for this hydrogen episode. Boots.
Yeah, so it'll be about hydrogen, which I know literally nothing about.
We're
So
gonna learn.
I'm gonna learn a thing. It's gonna be great. I love learning, especially when I don't have to read about it or like get frustrated trying to find what I'm trying to figure out and never finding the right thing.
Yeah.
So is it in the cards for 2022? Are we talking about guns or are we talking about something else? Um, sorry, I'm terrible at this. I don't have the focus to have this many things going at once. If you can't tell. Uh, so what's the next staple food? Oh yeah. Cards for 2022. Yeah. So what do you mean, like, in terms of the like convincing them to change, or like, sorry, I don't really remember the question or comment anymore because my brain doesn't remember things that long. Apologies, drugs do that. Um, so what's the next staple food you want to find a local replacement for? So grains, I think, is a really interesting one. I've been growing and trying to grow heritage grains the last couple of years. I've had some pretty good luck. I haven't gotten to the scale where I can actually like use them as grains versus like just continuing to like grow for more seeds, but I think that's probably in the cards in the next year or two, which will be pretty cool to see what we can do. As for clothes, like, it's one of those things I think, um, when it comes to clothing, that it doesn't wear out as much as you think it's going to, especially like me. Like, outside of my jeans, which I just destroy until there's literally like a dozen holes in them, and they're just like literally strings. Like my shirts and stuff, they'll get like a little rip in them or whatever, but like I end up getting like some pretty good use out of them. The key to me, I think, is usually just like keep certain pairs that you use for like the particularly nasty stuff, and then like you're not destroying all of your clothes. Oh, are the libs gonna realize that like greenwashing isn't gonna work? Gotcha. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so the next staple food, like I said, grains I think is super important. I'm really curious about nuts. I've been talking about for a year now about honey locusts, and my thought is to basically take the pods, boil them down, and like being able to take the sugars out that way and utilizing them. I think that's a really interesting idea to create a perennial sugar crop system. That's something we can grow here in New England, as well as like basically all of North America, versus relying on like sugar cane or even beets. And beets can be a really good sugar crop as well. But at the end of the day, it's still an annual. 3D printing firearms would be cool. It seems, and that's not something I spend a lot of time researching or reading about, but it seems like they're not very stable. Although I've heard there's some really cool stuff happening in some of the, uh, where the hell was it? Someplace I think in Africa where there's a civil war going on, that a majority of the guns have been 3D printed,
Oh, you
which
think
is
of Myanmar?
possibly. It's
There's
just like literally I read a headline someplace about it, and that was like the extent of it.
Yeah, the rebel groups there are like using a huge amount of like 3D printed firearms, and like to great effect.
Yeah,
Especially
so
like before they're like they're like obviously like capturing a lot of firearms from like police stations and stuff, but like
that
to be
helps.
able to do that, um, yeah, Control Pew is a good resource.
Cool. So go check that out if you want to learn more. I know Nestor's got some thoughts on that as well. I'm sure you'll be blowing me up in a few minutes. Uh, let me check the Instagram, see if we've had any other new questions.
Have you processed acorns?
I have. Um, it's a lot of work. And like I didn't really love the flavor, so like it wasn't something I was um like, I'm not motivated to do it again. I would rather
Yeah,
feed them to something else that's going to enjoy and then eat the thing that I wanna eat, like
piggy
pig.
bank.
Yeah, the piggy bank. Um, so we don't have a live stream set up yet for medical knowledge and skills. I do wanna do a stop the bleed, as well as some other basic medical. I've got some contacts I've already started having conversations with, so that's on the to-do list, which will be cool. As for the 3D printing, it's definitely a skill to learn. I don't know much about it, but I think it's important to understand that like as systems fall apart, like it's not like everything just like disappears one day. So like having access to like the internet and electricity and like all the things that are very infrastructurally dense, that there's been a lot of investment in, that won't decay quickly, will still exist. So having access to utilizing that kind of stuff is really important.
Yeah, really any sort of like 3D modeling because it goes beyond, well, in my opinion, it goes beyond like 3D printing because like plastics are great, but like the cost of like computer cut like metal machines is really coming down now. I think that's like definitely gonna be like if you're working on a farm, like being able to like replace that bit and not like order it from the other side of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I've been looking into some, different kinds of, like, metal cutting machines for that reason, even though my like technological skills aren't great, it is something I think that's super important because I personally think one of the things that's I would like to figure out and get better at is like utilizing technology to like create custom um like farm equipment and things like that where you can print stuff or share designs and things like that for equipment, custom design for what you're looking for, what people doing what you're doing are looking for. Because I saw somebody had mentioned the what the hell is it called, the rolly thing that you use for like nuts, um Mr. something. I can't remember what it's called. It not that important. But the point is, like, if you're into, like, growing tree crops and things like that, the equipment that exists for it are few and far between, and there's definitely, like, a high demand for stuff that doesn't exist. That people are like, we need equipment that can do these types of things, and like decentralizing that and making it accessible through different types of printers and lasers, I think is going to be really helpful, especially as like infrastructural collapse makes accessing materials, even if you can afford them, um, accessible. So yeah, the Nut Wizard. Thanks, Cole. So yeah, the short or the short of it is that yeah, these are skills you definitely need to if you can learn. I'm not the technologically savvy. Just leave me in the field, but I will tell you that it's a great idea. So
Even with the sheep.
even with the sheep,
No, I
like
said leave him with his sheep.
oh yeah, leave me with my sheep. Yes, leave me with the sheep and the chickens. Although right now I'm spending way too much time with the chickens because I had to butcher my roosters this past week because the the neighbor is sick and I felt bad while they were trying to go through chemo and hearing my roosters. So last
Yeah,
week I had to butcher them and I've already lost two chickens to a hawk. So I'm spending a lot of time outside with what may or may not be a pellet gun. Um, just, hanging out, living my best life,
living the dream, honestly, Andy.
living the dream. So yeah, recommendations for other podcasts in the field of collapse and leftist prepping. So the obvious one is Live Like the World is Dying. Um, the Partisan Gardens is a newer one. They've had a couple of really good interviews so far, so I'm really interested to see what they do with it. Propaganda by the Seed, which is more agriculture type stuff. They I actually just talked to Aaron today, which super nice guy. Um, those are probably the ones I would recommend first. I know there are some interesting, more like doomer ones. Like I think there's one called Collapse Now or something like that.
There
And
was there was one I started listening to, and I had to like shut it off like halfway through the first episode. It sounded like a cult induction. They're just like talking about like can't collapse aware people, and I'm like, "Mm,
that's interesting. Yeah, the one I was thinking was Breaking Down Collapse, which is kind of interesting. I kind of zoom in and out of it. I don't have a whole lot of time and energy for podcasts. Oddly enough, I can't listen to other people talk anymore. I guess because I'm so used to listening to myself talk. I would rather drive in silence. Um, yeah, so I usually do lose a couple to hawks, and my birds are like 100% free range, like over an acre. Um, so like they are very available, and the roosters were mostly keeping. I'd still lose one or two, but they kept everything pretty much in check. But I think now it's kind of like the reorganization is happening out in the field where they're trying to figure out who's in charge of what and who's going to be on lookout duty. And in the meantime, I'm just going to keep losing birds unless I do something.
they're organizing into popular defense councils."
Yeah, there's no shield walls yet, but we're getting there. So, um, but fortunately, they don't. The hawks, I never seen them go after the ducks. I mean, they get near them, but they don't ever seem to like try to grab them, which is interesting because I don't think they're much bigger. But I don't know, maybe they're just like, "Oh, those things got bigger wings, they can fly away." I don't know.
Do ducks have those like scary tiny teeth that geese have, or is it just
He
like bill?
I think they do, but I think they're just even smaller because
Hmm.
I've seen them, like, mash up some shit, like carrots and stuff. They'll, like, start chewing at them, and they'll just I'm like, "I don't understand how you ate that," but They do. Saw one like just go like nosedive into a rotting pumpkin and just like annihilate it. So like yeah, they probably have
That's a
they got
dream.
something going on.
This is more like this.
Um so yeah, let me see if we got any other questions going on right now on the Instagram. Elliot, you got any questions for me while you're out there?
Elliot, how are you doing?
Yeah, buddy. Where
How
are
are
you?
you?
Did we lose him already? He showed up and left. Um, would guinea hens be suitable defense system for chickens against hawks and foxes? So guinea hens are great because they're super loud, um, like louder than you ever, ever would expect. Um, they, but they are very weak animals. um, they're not. They might scare the hawks away. Actually, no, they won't because I've seen hawks take them down. Um, they're more feral, so they're better at like defending themselves in like a setting and like understanding how to like be more wild. Um, but they will definitely get taken down by a hawk or a fox. They might just be like more of a siren and like the
Hmm.
sacrificial lamb, but they're not going to stop them.
So they can
Uh,
talk the talk, they can't walk the walk.
yeah. And they're just like these weird little helmets, pretty much that like walk around your backyard and like sticks, and they're fantastic as long as you don't like your neighbors. Um, Opinions on barn cats. So barn
Okay.
cats are.
Sorry.
You want to take that one, Matt?
Oh no, I was just looking up a picture of the guinea
Guinea fowl.
hens.
Yeah, they're great. I love them. But they're so obnoxious. So barn cats are, I think, an interesting subject. People have very strong opinions on them, but I think it's really based on like where you live. So like where I am and the population of voles and mice I have, my cats, um, they they used to be only outside and then they got lazy. Um, so they would hunt only voles and mice. And I think I maybe saw them take down like one or two birds in 4 years. So like, are they going after birds? Occasionally, but like it's at least where I am, that's not a big concern. I think it also depends on your ecology, what's available, like what rare species you would want to be protecting and all of those types of things. So I don't think like a blanket yes no answer exists, but like if you've got like bales and bales of hay laying around, you don't want them nesting in it and shitting in it and making your animals sick. You need a barn cat. Um, so that's something to be aware of. I don't have any experience with peafowl. Um, I just know they're also a unique bird that people are into or not into. Um, so go check them out. Maybe they'll be a fit for what you're looking for. Guinea fowl, I do recommend them, but yeah, you got to know what your neighbors are into and how far away they are. I mean, my when we had the guinea fowl last year, um, they were probably 200 feet behind the house, and man, you could hear them across the street. They were loud, and they would refuse to go in the coop at night. So like they would sleep like up in the trees all night, and then at 6 in the morning, they're just blaring their like weird noise that just sounds like metal being smashed together. So yeah, just fully be aware of what you're signing up for. My neighbors were very happy when I butchered them. So I've said this like 6 times. Let me check the Instagram. As for are they tasty? Yes, they honestly of all the birds I've eaten, I think they're my favorite, which is unfortunate because of the fact that like no one else likes me having guinea fowl. I'd have like if I could, I'd have like 80 of them because you can basically if you've got good pasture, especially if it's like a good silvo pasture with like a lot of fruit drop, you could probably raise like a lot on an acre. Um, because they're so good at being feral and they don't really lay eggs. So like all of the caloric intake that they're making is going into their body and not reproducing. And like I think people forget that. Like when we talk about like, raising chickens, like the if you're raising like a basic broiler or even like some of the new ones like a rangers or whatever, like they're super efficient converters of food, but that conversion comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of like, where's that food coming from? Is that food something that can be produced in a way that can be sustainable? Like how are you giving a chicken that grows that quickly the amount of calories it needs? And there's basically no ethical way to do that. There's no sustainable long term way to do that. So there's like this trade off of producing food that's efficient at the cost of the supply chain that gets it there. Um, and that's why like things like guinea fowl, like they have pretty like small bodies, and they're not like super, they don't have those big like breasts like a broiler chicken does that you get at the store, but you can almost feed them nothing. So it's like there's no inputs to getting that bird. And that's like the trade-off is like we have to be realistic about what nature can sustainably do. And 90% of the livestock that we have, and I mean like literally 95% of the livestock we have don't meet that standard. Um, the reality is like specific cows in specific places can do that. Specific sheep in specific places can do that. Almost none of our chickens can do that. Some of our ducks can do that. So like the way we have to think about food really needs to like, especially around meat, needs to fundamentally change in order to like make food systems that are more resilient and like place based. Like someone had mentioned about like Michigan, like that place based idea of like how do you do this in the place you're living without having to be tied to these vast infrastructural pieces. Um, and that's where guinea fowl are really great, and they are again amazing tasting. So highly recommend if you hate your neighbors.
Good guinea banks.
Good guinea banks. They would love a black soldier fly bucket, I gotta say. I'm not gonna lie. They'd probably go nuts. They'd probably get super fat on them too. That'd be cool. It's a good idea now that I'm thinking about it. My neighbor's gonna kill me. They're like, you got rid of roosters because they were annoying for me, and then you got guinea fowl. Oh man, that'd be great. I want to do that now. It's a terrible idea. Um,
Your neighbors watching this live stream, like,
they're gonna start commenting like,
yeah,
"This is a terrible idea. Think
you
about your
son of a
neighbors.
bitch.
Like, they're such good people." All right, let's see what we got. Do you believe in Bigfoot? Was that because of my pictures of Bigfoot that I posted? No, I do not believe in Bigfoot. It's something I can't believe I have to say. So, Matt, do you believe in Bigfoot?
No, I guess not.
Guess not. Wow, it's like for losing your belief in Santa. Like
I
it's
want to
a
believe.
part of you. Oh, I want to believe.
Yeah, I
Um,
think there's, like, unexplained shit, but, like, maybe not
it's
Bigfoot.
called drugs.
Yeah. Wait, I live right next to Lake Champlain. There's supposed to be like a Loch Ness monster in there.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's our baseball team is I can't remember. It's something to do with they're like the lake monsters. Yeah, that Burlington Lake
I'll
monsters.
trust you on that one. Uh,
Climate change will drive out the cryptids. You're right.
um, big predictions for 2022. So I know It Could Happen Here did their own predictions for 2022. What did you think about those, Matt? Did you listen to that? I have
Yeah,
opinions.
I thought they were kind of lame.
Yeah, I thought
I
they
don't
were
know.
a little lazy. Um, I think the obvious like the $200 at go is the Democrats get smoked in the midterms. Um, what I think is getting missed is that to do that, there needs to be a what is that? Champy? Oh, is that? Oh, that's the champagne like lake. Gotcha,
Yeah, Lake Champlain.
gotcha.
Uh, but that's interesting. I didn't know there was a third. Ogo Pogo.
Sure. So big predictions. My big prediction is that for the GOP to take the Senate, they're going to rile up their base like we've never seen. What concerns me, and I cannot understate or overstate this, is that people that I know that are my clients that are tradesmen that were very anti-Trump are now in the few like literally 3 different people that I've talked to have said, "I don't like Trump, but Biden doesn't seem to give a shit about us." Like, even if Trump wasn't doing it for us, he was doing it to save his own ass, he was still doing something that helped
Yeah.
us. And that's really scary. Um, I don't think that can be missed. And I think people have gotten too complacent and think like, okay, Trump is gone, he's gonna try again, and like the right's gonna try to rise again. But I don't think they've really gone anywhere. I think they've consolidated a lot of power. They're just not wielding it.
Mm.
And that's the scary part is that I think we're gonna see that this summer.
Well,
Um,
we'll also find out, like, this year who the, like, GOP slate is,
yeah,
right?
I mean, we'll start to. You'll see the people that are like making their bids. I think a given is Trump. I've talked about Madison Cawthorn, and despite his, I don't even know what you want to call him, his inability to not be a complete idiot and to try to burn every bridge, he, I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
I don't think either.
Uh, yeah, so I made a joke about DeSantis a while back that he was going to get a spray tan and run for president in 2024. I think that was one of my King of the Hill memes. But yeah, I think DeSantis is definitely thinking about a real run this year. But I think 2022, I think 2022, we're going to see a very big rise. Um, I think I agree with Robert Evans. His I guess shocker prediction is that in 2022 we'll see a major city in the U.S. that's not livable because of climate change
Oh,
for at least a short period of time. I 100% agree. I think it's going to be on the West Coast with the fires. Um, so we'll see if that happens.
do they
I
have
also
sorry.
What's that?
I was just gonna say with the, like, wildfires, do they have, like, infrastructural defense against that? That, like
I don't think so, but I think you've got even if they do, I think you've got an interesting pairing where you've got a massive, fire, and you also have this giant infrastructural collapse happening. I also think there's going to be an attack on the infrastructure, like
I
whether it's a
think so.
port or something like that. Whether it's an attack in the sense of like destroying it, or an attack as in the sense of people trying to take advantage of the disorganization to for profit or whatever it might be. I think there's going to be some kind of attack on our supply chain infrastructure. That's my 2022 call. What do you
Catch
got
me
for me, Matt?
renting a truck and stealing a cargo container.
Yeah, like have you seen that video of all the trains that are getting looted for like Amazon shit and stuff like that? Oh
No,
man. Yeah.
that's pretty fun.
Yeah. Do what you got to do. So what's your prediction, Matt?
Um, I don't know. I really don't. I haven't really thought much about it. Um,
I also think COVID will be worse at this time next year than it is now.
really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess with COVID, I think it's gonna be better. I think we're
Everyone
like,
says that. I don't see it. I want to believe, but I just don't.
I think like it's gonna be, well, I don't know. This is being recorded. I don't want it to come back and bite me in the ass.
Listen, I'm gonna put your last 4 digits of your social at the bottom of this,
Okay,
and your
yeah,
full
just hit me
legal
up.
name. And yeah, don't worry. I got your address. We'll hook you up.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope it's better this year. The UK just like scrapped, or is like about to scrap like all their COVID restrictions. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean we're probably not far behind. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah,
So that's gonna be super fun. As for the infrastructure for handling wildfires is meant for shifting populations to safer areas. I'm assuming that also requires like our infrastructure to be working, which it
yeah,
isn't. We don't have the labor force because of COVID. So you pair that with the wildfire, and like I can again very easily see like shit falling apart.
yeah. I
Um,
also think that like what happened in Virginia with like a bunch of people getting like stuck in their cars for 24 hours. Um, I think we're gonna like see more of that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's definitely possible. Um, there's, you know, I just look at the roads around here and they're just terrible, and it's like supposed to be a good part of the country, and that's absolutely frightening because how much worse is it? I lived in the South, and I remember like some of the less traveled highways being pretty tough, but it's gotten so much worse. It's almost easy to forget how much better things were, like 15 years ago in terms of like our infrastructure because
mm,
like none of it's been touched in 15 years. Um, and that's just like that blows me away. Like how easily it is to forget how easily you can forget how much worse things have gotten while also like the fact that they were good and like theoretically there's no reason unless like our supply chain and like our fundamental ability to govern is starting to fall apart. You know, just basic stuff like making sure roads work shouldn't be
yeah.
hard. um so yeah, let me see if we got any other questions here. Let's see. Do you use your sheep's wool? So part of the reason why, I don't know if that was clear. So do you use your sheep's wool? Part of the reason we were going to have the one tonight was because I do have my sheep's wool because I shear them, and I've tried cleaning it and preparing it and then doing the drop spindle thing, and I'm terrible at drop spindling, which is like basically you've got this like basically looks like a pencil with like a round thing at the bottom, and the way you twist the wool while it spins winds it up so that it becomes yarn. And whenever I do it, it's like one section's like this thick, the next section like is ready to break. Like I'm terrible at it. I was hoping I was going to learn a couple things about being better about that. I was going to wear my wool sweater and just like mock my sheep when I shave them and be like, "You're cold, I'm hot. What's up?" Establish dominance.
um, I guess like if you have your own sheep or alpacas or something, it really makes sense. Like have like a spinning wheel,
They're expensive. I mean, I guess that's not a super surprise, but
but like
um
how expensive?
for like a one that you'd put in front of your fireplace like old school and like spin it with your foot and like, you know,
Hmm.
be a spinster in the 1700s. Those are like 600-700 bucks.
Okay, but like also you're spending like of all the money you spend on your sheep, like that's not like huge in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, it's a big one shot. And I'm not I mean, the problem is like, and this comes back to this whole idea of like community. Like I don't
True.
have room for and time and all of these things to do the spinning of wool, you know, harvesting honey, you know, like all these different things that require specialized equipment. And it's great to know how to do those things, and I like doing them, like the practice and understanding and having that relationship with the place and time of where you live. You know, pressing grapes, whatever it might be, and like you go down this road of like homesteading, which I think a lot of people kind of work their way into like when you start thinking about okay, I want to grow food, well I want to grow organic food, okay, well I don't want to destroy the soil, so I'm going to try cover crops or polyculture, and then you fall into permaculture and hopefully you get past that into like eco agriculture, and with that comes all these other layers of okay, not just my food but what about my clothes, what about like the materials in my house, my table, chairs, things like that. Like where are the materials coming from, and you know how ethical are they? Um, and like you can get into woodworking and all these different things, and you just go down these rabbit holes, and there's no way anybody can do all of them, despite like
True.
the great myth of like homesteading. And you could probably do them all, but your quality of work and your ability and your efficiency and all of those things sacrifice in that process, and that's where community can be really great is like a handful of people know how to spin the wool. I can raise the sheep, but you can go do the other stuff with it. Someone else will milk them, like whatever it might be. But building that specialization, I think, is so crucial, and I think it's a one of the things we have to remember when we're talking about, like trying to do all this stuff, is to not go down that hole of trying to be good at everything or thinking that you have to do or be good at everything. But that's just a really long-winded way of me saying I don't want to spend $500 on a spinning wheel. That's all that really is.
Yeah.
I made up all of that. Doesn't mean anything.
It like, takes a village to make a village.
Yeah,
No, it's
marginal efficiencies and all that good stuff.
it is so tempting. Did you ever see that, like, YouTube show where the guy was, like, making all the stuff from complete scratch?
Is that like
Like
the people that like make stuff out of mud? Those guys on YouTube?
yeah, but it was like, he made, like, a suit from scratch, and so he, like, raised silkworms to make, like, the tie, and he, like
I have not, but that sounds
mm,
like something I would do if I was trapped in quarantine long enough.
yeah. And it's like he, like, made a book by, like, shooting a deer for the, like, hide cover, and
Hopefully, use the rest of the deer.
yeah, I'm sure he did.
Yeah, it's I like it is a cool concept in theory. In terms of like practicality, though, it's
Oh,
like
no.
totally
Yeah,
impractical. But like it's like one of those things I'd like to try to do everything like once,
yeah.
you know. But there's only a finite amount of time, so to go back to my spinning wheel, it's not coming. It's not happening. Grow the wheat, raise the meat. That is me.
Well, n yeah, the dude that started it, yeah, made a sandwich from scratch first. He, like, grew the
Oh,
vegetables and
gotcha.
everything.
I thought you were
Uh,
just criticizing
but
me, which
yeah,
is fine.
I can
Um,
make everything.
Yeah, and that's the point, is there's a lot simple things aren't simple. There's, to how the what was the quote from Kropotkin about standing on the shoulders of giants? I'm not going to be able to remember it off the top of my head, but just like that idea of like all of the work that we do today is, a direct benefit, a publicly owned benefit to all the generations that got us in the place where we could do these things,
Yeah,
which is, I think, really important to think about. And it's something that we end up talking about in the Ireland episode a bit because of some population changes that happen. So a little hint of future content.
what's to come?
Um, can you open up a regional channel for Western Central Europe on your Discord? I can. If there's anybody here that's not on the Discord, let me just throw that link up real quick.
True. Discord's fun.
Discord is fun. I just sometimes forget it's on or open on my computer, and then I'll be like in the middle of like a interview or something, and I'll just hear like ting, ting, ting. I'm like, ah, shit. So yeah, if you're not on the Discord, I'm assuming most people here are, because I don't know why you would want to listen to a live Q&A of us if you didn't already know who we were.
Andy, we are so interesting.
I know.
Well,
I mean, that's how Elliot convinced me to start this podcast. Is he's like, I'm telling you, people want to listen to you talk, and I was like, nobody wants to listen to me talk. Just ask my wife. And you know, a year and a half later, here we are. So I will open up that channel though. Not right now, obviously, but I will probably do that later. Just message me in the general chat, and I never say no. Just someone let me know what's going on. Let's see if we got any other questions on the Instagram. Ducks or chickens? I say ducks. You have opinions, Matt?
um, yeah, I think I like ducks more than I like chickens.
I love ducks. They're annoying, but like they're just like so stupid. It's great.
I also, I also really like eating duck. I think it's like a much better meat.
I also really like the fact that you can render so much fat off of them.
True.
That's
That
a big one for me.
yeah. I was watching the Wartime Farm again. For like
You
the
just miss Alex.
I do. For like the 20th time. Anyway, one of the things they're thinking about with their pigs is that like usually they wouldn't wait. Yeah, they wouldn't wait so long to slaughter. But they like got them to put on a bunch of fat because fat was so like scarce in the rationing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things, like, my daughter is a big fan of mac and cheese, so what I usually do is when I have had duck recently, I end up using the rendered fat to make the macaroni and cheese, and I gotta say, it's, like, the most delicious macaroni and cheese on earth, but it's
Wow.
also, like, full of, like, really good fats for her,
Hmm.
which is, like, cool because like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a whole lot of six-year-olds in the United States having, like, duck fat in their diet regularly, so that's
Sure.
probably a good thing. Not that other kids aren't, but that she's getting it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so duck is a little bit of a tougher, I guess, like breast to cook, but I think it's less forgiving than chicken.
Hmm.
But the fat is really great. Um, they're I don't know.
They
I like
keep
ducks
differently.
more. Yeah, they like they respect a fence
Oh
mostly.
no, I mean like does the meat keep differently? Like
You mean in terms of
store
storage?
different. Yeah.
No, not really. The the duck generally. Yeah, I would say that I don't really think about how you store them differently. Um, it's just duck, I think because of the fat, I'm not 100% sure. It's a little bit of a little finicky when it comes to cooking it.
Hmm.
It's really easy to end up with like a dry duck. And they're not cheap if you're buying them, and they're a lot of work if you're raising them, and you don't want them to go to waste.
True.
So like that's one of the things I do want to do more with the podcast, or at least like these kind of alternative things like the Twitch and the YouTube, is get into some of that cooking component because you put in all this work to grow food. And like I think basically most people listening are either growing food or they want to grow food. And it's like you put in all this time and like I'll just use like this grain. I'm growing this grain, this heritage grain. Um and it's like, okay, you spent all this time growing einkorn and like 5 years to get to the point where you can grow enough that you can eat some of it. And then what are you going to do with it? Like you're going to make like the same basic loaf of bread you've always made, and
Yeah.
like you got to respect the amount of effort you put into that and what that plant has given to you. And I think the same with like animals. Um, to like respect the fact that if
Yeah.
they're going to die for you, like don't just like overcook it and like just have this nasty chicken that you choke down with mayonnaise or whatever. You know what I mean?
Chicken mayonnaise.
Yeah, like leftover turkey, make like the sandwich, like chicken salad sandwich, turkey salad sandwich.
Oh yeah.
It's a
There
white
was.
person thing.
Well, I think we did like a different English thing. The usual things.
Did it have the
Christmas
blood
stuff
of
that
like
was.
indigenous people? Is that
Sorry.
an English thing? I said, did it have like the blood of indigenous people?
um, what do you think about growing flax?
I tried to grow flax last year for linen, and I didn't have great luck with it. Part of it is because it was like the shadiest spot in the garden, so like I knew it was gonna be like hit or miss. But I think it's a cool idea. There's like this really cool video of like this old timer in like Ireland growing flax and like making, growing flax and making linen, like the whole process from like him prepping the ground, which
Mm,
is pretty cool. And you know, if I ever have the patience for it, I'd like to make some more content like that because it is cool
yeah,
to see. Um,
that'd be cool.
but yeah, let me see. Do we have anyone else? We've been going for a lot longer than I expected. So,
Yeah. The other thing is you can get like linseed oil from flax,
oh yeah,
and
you
like
can.
with the trimmings you can make like twine and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot you could do with it. More fiber arts. Got to bring them back.
Yeah.
So last question that I'll take unless someone else has a question here. Are you going to do more KNF content on the Twitch? So yeah, people must have seen that I posted that we're going to do a KNF fermented fruit juice. I think Friday or Saturday. Saturday. Uh, Basically because like I get a lot of messages all the time of people being like, "Hey, like I'm not sure if I'm doing it right because blah blah blah." So like I figured, we've got the content, and we're gonna have some more content on fermented plant juice and fruit juice on the YouTube. But what we can also do is a live one where I'll just basically like tell everyone get like a pound of fruit, pound of apples, and a knife, a scale, cutting board, a jar, an elastic, and like a paper towel. And like if everyone signs in at the same time, we can all like chop up our fruits and chat and go through the process. And I can answer any questions people have. And um, it might take like 45 minutes or an hour, but then you go in not knowing how to do it, and you walk out and you've got a finished product pretty much, which I think is a pretty cool idea. And we'll probably do some other stuff like that, especially when it starts warming up outside, because right now it's just like it's tough to get plants that you can use for like fermented plant juice. I'm not in the mood to go out into the ocean to collect seaweed to
No,
work with seaweed. Uh, no, no, I know, surprising.
lame Andy.
I know. We could do a lab one, but like there's like they're very short steps, and then there's like time off between,
Yeah,
so that's the difficult part.
it'll be
But
the first segment of
yeah,
each.
we could do like a segmented series, and check in with everyone in like 3 days and be like, all right, everyone should look kind of like this, and go through that process. So yeah, there's like some cool stuff we can do. Twitch is an interesting platform. I'm still trying to figure it out exactly, but people seem to like it, and it's cool to chat
Mm,
with people in a different format.
fuck
Right,
with
Matt?
Twitch.
You went
Yeah,
straight from being in the background to being right up front and center.
it's my dream. I'm finally
I
in the spotlight.
in the spotlight. I'm just gonna disappear, and you can run the rest of this.
All right, I'm taking over the Poor Proles Almanac. It's
All
a
right.
new brand. We sell like single-use plastics. Thanks for coming to the live stream. Oh, okay. I thought you were actually gonna leave me. I
uh,
was like, all right, how do I close this out?
yeah. So that's pretty much it. If you guys haven't joined our Discord, please do. Uh, we will start an NFT.
The
Um,
Poor Proles crypto mine.
the fungi, Poor Proles fungi tokens. Um, so if you guys are a supporter of ours on Patreon, thank you so much. It's really cool. It still blows me away that people actually think what we're doing is important. So like every time I see somebody subscribe or just make it another month, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So thank you guys so much if you do support us. If you don't, but you share our stuff or give us a review on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, that's awesome too. Again, it blows me away. We're a top 1% podcast worldwide, and that's just like surreal. I was just a guy in a basement that like works a regular job. So it's been a cool experience, and it's fun to have you guys along for the ride. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all, and we'll see you guys on Saturday. Do some cool KNF stuff.